Hey everybody, hope you're well. And we've got Larpin from Karate Combat, something a little bit different today. As you all know, I'm a bit of a UFC nut and fighting mad, have been since I was a kid. So it's great to have Larpin onto the channel today. Hey Larpin, how you doing, man?
Good, dude. Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, well, Karate Combat's such an interesting thing. It's like, especially with the revival, and you probably know this as well, coming up in the 80s, Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi, um,
Yeah,
karate's cool again.
it is. It is. And we're trying to make it even cooler, or at least more exciting.
And I'm assuming it probably wasn't Karate Kid, but what was the big inspiration behind, Karate Combat doing something different and driving that space?
Yeah, I mean, the inspiration, super high level behind Karate Combat. We're trying to create the UFC for striking. We're trying to create a sports league for the next generation of fans. The biggest complaint when casual fans watch the UFC is both the cost and access, and then really the time on the ground. If you don't understand grappling and jujitsu, you might get a little bit bored watching two guys roll around on the mat for 5-10 minutes. So Karate Combat, the biggest change to the rule set when you think about it versus UFC is we take that grappling and jujitsu out. We also make the round shorter. We force forward progress both with our pit and with scoring, favoring aggression over damage. And then we do a bunch of creative things to really try and go after a younger audience. So we make it really, really easy to watch Karate Combat. You can watch it anywhere. We simultaneously stream it for free on just about every platform. We are intentional to try and make the broadcast look like a real life version of a unique level in a video game. And then we've gamified the whole sport using kind of cutting edge Web3 technology.
Yeah, I was just having a look at some of the fights and how you use the technology to sort of create these really cool events. It was like so futuristic.
Yeah.
Um, and it got me thinking actually, you could do like like the old Valley Championships,
Uh huh.
like the old.
Yeah, we've actually looked at a couple of venues that look like that. We've probably looked at hundreds and hundreds of venues over the years, and now we're building our own. But that I think would be a fun theme for an event for sure.
Yeah. Do you know what? I don't know if you I just the ideas flow when I start looking at your stuff because it's very creative. Like having, like the Danielson come in and maybe referee a match or something,
That'd be fun. I like it
those types of things. That's all like probably good press and all
for
the rest
sure.
of it. Um, and so what's the mission going forward for you guys? What are you trying to achieve? What do you want to do in the future? Some things I've seen just looking from the outside is obviously you've got transition of fighters from different associations. So great example most recently is probably Mohammed Makachev. He's come
Yes.
off the UFC. I do actually have someone that might his name is White Kong, used to be in
Okay.
UFC's now in PFL, but those two, I mean, it's like a John Jones, Tom Aspinall hate,
Uh huh.
or and those two keep saying that they want to fight each other. One keeps dodging the other or whatever. But I mean, that would be a fight and a half, I think.
I love it. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, the goals here on the sports side really create the UFC for striking. Um, there's sort of an insatiable demand for fight content on the internet, especially like mobile social. Um, but the supply of like marketable fighters is limited. We think that we can create a UFC-sized sports league by going after a different fighter pool. Um, you know, UFC is a 30-year experiment into which type of combat and martial art is the most dominant, and it's sort of a settled question under MMA rules. Grappling and
mm,
jujitsu is super dominant. Um, we've taken that out strategically, and it allows us to pull from a different fighter pool, which is really, really important. Because if you're going after the same fighter pool as an organization as dominant as the UFC, you're going to have a really tough time. So even though there's huge demand for fight content on the supply side, you strategically really want to be pulling from a different fighter pool, and that's why we're one of the reasons we go after pure strikers when you look at our kind of exclusive kind of fighters that we're building up towards belts. So that's the fight side of things. On the Web3 side, the goal continues to be build like the most broadly adopted Web3 application out there. We've built, I think, one of the easiest to use mobile consumer crypto experiences out there. We set out to build it to really try and convert our awareness into super fans. We think the core competency of every sports property, no matter how mature they are, is really building stars at an efficient price. And with our demo of mostly younger fans, we think there may be a shortcut in that very long conversion process between fans and super fans by financializing things. Because if you talk to our demo, almost half of them will tell you they don't enjoy watching sports unless they have a bet on it. And so the dream is and was to accelerate this conversion by giving our fans a little bit of financial upside on each fight, in the hopes that it gets them doing self-started research into our athletes' names, backgrounds, narratives, the things that are really critical to get someone to emotionally care about the outcome of a sporting event. And it's not easy. It's really not easy to get someone to learn, even someone's name who they haven't seen before. And this year we've been working on actually taking that technology package and allowing any other sports league, team, esport, fantasy sport to use it for free with an initiative we call Up Layer 2.
Okay, and that's sort of the role of the karate token.
Yeah, so the karate token is threefold: governance up on the gaming and token gated experiences. Because there's currently no owner of the sports property, all the perks that traditionally go to owners go to the players on top of our up on the gaming leaderboard.
Mm-hmm.
But over the last year or two, we've had a lot of other properties reach out and say, hey, we'd like to copy this. It works really well. Would you help us with that? And so we ended up building a platform that's almost done to allow any other sports league to copy it with no cost to them.
Yeah, because you've got a few like stars, I would say. Like you got Sam Alvey, that's the one that sort of springs to mind for me.
Sure.
I like the heavyweights, big boys.
It's always
I'm
fun.
6'2", built like a shit house. So I like watching the big boys fight. It's like, and Tom Aspinall, like obviously that's UFC, but like those bigger fighters, I just think they're quite, one person gets proper touched,
sure.
they're going down. But then saying that, I was watching the Mohamed Makhachev fight, and that was fast and furious. Like
For sure.
Like you talked about pushing the action.
Yeah.
Like that was backwards and forwards. And to be fair, a little part of me thought, he's going to get battered because it's all stand up. And when you've watched him before, he's been very ground, wrestling up in Manchester where they do it and stuff, very ingrained. And when you see that, you don't, I suppose the Karate Combat gives him that show, or it has given him that platform to say, do you know what? Actually, I can strike as well. Through some knees, some spinning back, wheel kicks, all sorts of things were going on. And that, so I think you've hit the nail on the head a little bit, because I was actually quite impressed by the push of the action versus sometimes UFC. If someone gets down, they could be there for 3 minutes, and you're like, okay, wait for the round to finish, get them back up again and start. So I that's what I quite liked about Karate Combat. That was different, definitely.
Yeah, it's fun.
And have you ever done any martial arts yourself?
I'm really a crypto person.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, we've got lots and lots of like lifelong martial artists on the team, starting with our league president, Awesome Zaidi, who's a 2-time kickboxing champion, is one of the best coaches in martial arts and MMA, has one of the winningest records as a coach in the UFC, still coaches a bunch of very good prospects in the UFC, owns a gym in Miami called Goat Shed, which we're currently helping him expand into a much bigger venue that's going to moonlight as a Karate Combat Stadium once a month.
Oh, cool. Because the one person that I'd love to see come across, and I think it would be a good asset for you guys, is Stephen Thompson,
Oh yeah, so
Wonder
Steven
Boy.
Wonderboy actually announces fights for us here and there. Um, and I mean, I think everyone agrees he'd be a great fit in Karate Combat.
Yeah, 100%. I think everybody knows that's his style, that
For
standoff, and
sure.
he's been so successful. And I suppose that gets us to obviously, you know, you've got the great fighters. Now you've got like the commentators. I think anybody that knows anything about martial arts is knows of Bas Rutten,
Uh-huh.
George St. Pierre, and some of the legends that you guys have got on the board, doing all the announcing and stuff like that, which is really cool. And how did you get hold of those guys? Because obviously they're legends of the sport.
Yeah, I mean, so Boss is our league chairman, and he's actually been with us since day one. My co-founder recruited him, um, and he's announced every single Karate Combat event except for one when he was off filming a movie with The Rock, which comes out later this year.
I think that's a good excuse.
Yeah.
Nice, man. And for you guys, what does now the future look like? Where are you going? What are the next big events, and what's happening?
Yeah, so I'd say the thing I'm super focused on right now is this stadium that we're building out down in Miami. So
Mhm.
we last year we were in 11 different venues, 5 different countries, 4 or 5 different states within the U.S. And it's just really, really hard to operate like that as a small organization with a small team and a limited budget. And in Q4, we started approaching some of our sponsors about helping us build out a dedicated venue in Miami. Miami is where the current Goat Shed is based. We've got a lot of fighters from Southeast Florida. It is a bit of a fighting hub. We've probably had about 12 events in Southeast Florida to date over the over the last 7, 8 years. And we secured a sponsorship for it, and I guess around March. And it's a different exercise from anything we've ever done, because to date we've been uh, setting up these venues in 3 to 5 days, throwing an event and then tearing it down, and renting most of our equipment. And that's really, really hard, but we know how to do that. And now we're figuring out like how we actually build something for the long term, buy our own equipment, permanently install it, try and get the sight lines and the sound perfect, all the angles perfect.
Mhm.
And it's the type of thing you want to try and do as close to perfect on the first shot as you can. So I'm spending tons of time on that. Again, during the day, it is a Goat Shed gym with tons of the best talent in the UFC rolling in and
Mhm.
doing training sessions and shooting content and doing seminars. Um, many of our fighters actually fight for Goat Shed. It's also a Karate Combat Performance Institute, so there's going to be a permanently installed Karate Combat pit in there. And then one of the things I'm most excited about is there's going to be like what we call a 24/7 live stream from the venue. So we're hanging a bunch of cameras throughout the space. It's a pretty big space, about 20,000 square feet, and creating this like consistently brand live stream that'll show a couple cameras at once. That should just pump out, the potential for short form content every single day. Um,
Would that be like a bit like Big Brother? So people could just see people training in the gym, or
a
okay,
little. I think it'll be
okay,
a little bit. Well, I don't know. Did Big Brother actually run a 24/7 stream, or did they just kind of show the
yeah.
highlights? They did in the UK.
Well, when you see it on they show the hour program, they would show the highlights. But I think you could access it, and it was on
Yeah,
24/7. You go on like Channel 4 webs, whatever, and I think they had like several cameras up or something. I mean,
yeah,
people do that. I like watch it for hours. I mean,
yeah, for sure. I think the important thing is like you create this consistently branded live stream that people will naturally clip from and post to socials.
Hmm.
Um, and it just kind of gets everywhere. I mean, the scenes inside a goat shed are pretty wild. Um, it's a really, really entertaining place with very high level martial artistry. So I think it'll be just like instantly entertaining. So I'm very excited about that. And then, we're once a month, it will be a karate combat stadium. We'll also like rent it out to other people, I think. Um, we've got a lot of demand from other organizations that want to use the stadium, and just figuring out how to make the sight lines perfect, um, how to make the lighting as good as possible, how to really just elevate the sound in the venue and on broadcast. And the kind of side benefits for karate combat are pretty enormous. So I'm very, very excited about that.
Yeah, it sounds very much like the sort of the Apex.
It does.
Yeah, that type vibe.
UFC. I'm not a UFC's actually in the process of expanding the Apex right now. Right now it's like a 500-person capacity, but they only let in like, I don't know, less than 100 people. The 500-person capacity on the Apex actually includes every single person in the room, so all the crew and the fighters and everything.
Hmm.
And they're expanding it to 1,000, but for some reason they don't quite use it like we do, or we're planning to. Which
Hmm.
is the goal here is to make it look like a normal karate combat event. So it'll be a little bit smaller capacity, about 1,000 people.
Hmm.
But most of our events are kind of like 1,800 to 3,000 people. But so it should feel and look like a normal karate combat event, but with like a better sight lines, better sound, better VIP experience. And it'll probably allow us to like create a much more kind of consistent broadcast product, since it's like the same equipment and crew every time.
Yeah, I suppose that will help in terms of because you guys are on UFC Fight Pass as well.
Yeah, we're actually one of the best performing properties on UFC Fight Pass, despite that we're one of the few non-exclusive properties on there.
Hmm.
Um, because at the same time we're on UFC Fight Pass, we're streaming everywhere. But we do very, very well on there.
And what about because obviously the sort of model you've talked about there is very seems very ingrained in America. Obviously, when you look at things like the UFC and their global expansion, you can see things like they'll obviously, they got McGregor, so now they're in the UK. There's loads of fights in the
Sure.
UK, and they get their, I can't think of her name now, but the Chinese girl, um,
Yep.
she got the world title. So, there's very much, and then they got a sports performance center there. Is there any ambition to then branch out? Because obviously, I'm in the UK.
Yeah.
And it'd be great if we had like an event here to, I think there's a lot of good European fighters as well that would.
There are. Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, we haven't had an event in not just UK but Europe for a long time. Um, most of our travel recently has been in partnership with local governments that are willing to pay host city fees to Karate Combat to come. That doesn't really happen in the UK or in Europe so much. Um, and then also we've been following around a decent amount of crypto conferences. Partnering with Consensus and Token 2049 and Bitcoin Conference, Permissionless. And so for one reason or another, we haven't been to Europe in quite a while, and it's a little bit of a shame. And unfortunately, I don't really see it happening this year.
Mhm.
For the rest of this year, we're going to be mostly at the stadium. That's kind of part of the deal. We're supposed to kick it off with 4 to 5 shows. And also we have some unannounced events. I think they're still unannounced in the UAE and Middle East towards the end of the year,
Okay, cool.
um, which is a little bit closer.
And then obviously you've got the martial arts, you've got the crypto side of things. A question, I suppose, political, but obviously we've got Keir Starmer, so we're just buggered. But you guys have got Trump. He's very pro crypto. How do you see that sort of helping karate combat?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've designed the system in a pretty safe way, pretty wholesome way, where the regulatory risk is relatively low versus most crypto projects. The nuance there is that we've got like this physical sports league, and we show up places with like 100, 150 people, and so we do have to be careful, right? We're not just a few kids and anonymous kids in a back room somewhere. So we definitely have to be more careful than most crypto projects. Um, I think the Trump presidency was one of the things that gave us more confidence to build a dedicated stadium in Miami. Um, I think that would have been a little bit, I don't know if we would have really done it in a different administration, to be completely honest. And then on the licensing side of things, up layer two, I think, the continued legal normalization of crypto, at least in the US, is definitely helping other orgs kind of get their head around copying what we did. And then, I think there's continued benefits both on the revenue side for us. A lot of our sponsors are Web3 brands and then Web2 brands launching crypto projects. Karate Combat's like really one of the only kind of maybe the only mainstream media platform where you can really reach a lot of Web3 people. And we really go above and beyond to deeply integrate kind of complex Web3 projects directly into everything we do. Um, and so I think, there's a lot of kind of revenue benefits to the continued expansion of the crypto market. And as it starts to eat other sectors, that'll be really good for us. Continued proliferation of like on ramps, off ramps, all that stuff helps a lot.
Yeah, I think obviously we're trying to change our government at the moment and become more crypto friendly, a bit like you guys. And it's great to see that's progressing forward. What would you say is, I suppose, the biggest benefit of all this? So if someone was brand new to the channel and they've just found Karate Combat, what would you say the three big things are that they can take away from sort of today's interview?
Sorry, what was that question again?
So someone's new to the channel today, they've just heard all this information. What three things would you want them to go away and remember about Karate Combat?
Okay, got it. First of all, go follow us on socials because it's really entertaining. I'd probably start with Instagram, to be honest. That's where you're going to learn everything about the league, and our content's really viral. So even if you forget about Karate Combat, you'll probably see us in a few weeks. Second, go download the Karate Combat app on iOS and app stores. So you can get 88 free tokens, back up your seed phrase, your iCloud with the click of a button, and get notifications when it's time to play Up on the Gaming. And lastly, keep your eye out because we're about to announce pretty soon our first really big event at our new stadium.
Nice. And what I'll do is I'll put all the links below so people can just check out the description and find you guys and see where you are. And I suppose the last big question is, what's your favorite crypto and why?
Karate.
If it wasn't karate, because that's a given.
Oh man, that's a political question. I'd rather not answer that one, to be honest. Um, I'm I've been in the space for a long time,
Uh-huh.
going back to like early 2014, and like a tremendous kind of bull on the long-term prospects of the entire asset class. I think the last 6, 7 months have been pretty depressing in crypto, surprisingly.
Mm.
Um, and that's just one of those things that kind of happens in crypto pretty often. It's just still so illiquid, and um, I think the next few years are going to be really incredible time for this market. I think there's going to be a
Yeah.
lot of like Web 2 tech companies and huge asset managers that come in and launch their own L2s. I think you're going to see like all of the kind of traditional asset managers really, onboard tons of assets, and you continue to see kind of governments kind of competing to bring Web3 to their geographies. So I think it's a really great time for crypto that probably gets overshadowed a little bit just by like prices of non-Bitcoin crypto assets, which have been relatively depressed for the last half year.
Yeah, I think that's just the whole Trump trying to get the interest rates down as low as possible to refinance. And if I don't know about yourself, but I follow Raoul Powell,
Uh-huh.
and all of his content. So I sort of follow his strategy to some extent in terms of, don't trade too much, sit tight,
For
ride
sure.
out the lows, and then you're in for the highs really. And try and think more long term. If you listen to Michael Sayer, for instance, I listened to a lot of this stuff. 'Cause obviously Bitcoin 25 was just this weekend, wasn't it? So I listened to quite a bit of content. Still got a bit more to listen to, but it's such an exciting space. And like, oh, I got in. Obviously, you were well in early, like 2014. I was in 2017 or something, and it's just it's just encapsulated me really. And everything I do is somehow crypto related. But it's great to see what you guys have built. Fantastic product. And anybody that's out there, please go check out Karate Combat. Give the guys a like, a follow. And just Lapin, thank you very much for coming on today, sharing all this wonderful information. And hopefully we can speak again.
I would love that.
Awesome. Thank you, brother.
My pleasure.
Feel